We have no volume. Can anyone hear us on Teams?
I don't think they've come back yet.
Okay. We have no volume.
Rebecca, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Kimberly, can you hear us? Morris?
I can hear you.
Thank you.
Did you guys hear my summary of the public comment? Or did you not hear any of that?
No.
Okay, so in summary, one more time is, we did receive 54 pieces of public comment. For the majority of them, there was concerns over moving microneedling into the scope of practice of strictly advanced aesthetics, financial hardship, just by not being able to practice, all the money that they have spent being able to practice, been doing it safely because there have been no complaints. So that was the general theme of the public comment. There was one person that agreed with the proposed rule and one group that didn't think that advanced estheticians should be doing lasers and IPL. So that's the gist of the public comment. There was also a hearing. 14 people came to the hearing and gave verbal comment. And I provided everybody with that recording, and then gave you a hearings officer report. And it was the same thing, the same basic concerns over that, not wanting it removed from the cause scope of practice. So onto the options. The first option would be to just leave it how you proposed it, meaning it would stay in advanced aesthetics and cause would be prohibited. That's the first option. Option 2 would be to allow estheticians to do needling, limited to within the epidermis. With that, you could, in this rulemaking, provide a depth of needle, 2.5, whatever you decide, but it has to stay within the epidermis. So anything that would go beyond that, you couldn't do. You, in this rulemaking, because it wasn't in the notice of proposed rules that goes out to the world, you can't add any education or let's say continuing education or things like that for microneedling. But what you can do is you could lay out what you would want a rule to look like and give you direction to start that process. So it would basically be the same process that we just did. We'd have a rec, they'd look at what you guys give me or whatever parameters you've given me. And then we'll come back definitely to the Board of Cosmetology. There is some questions because it would only be the Board of Cosmetology vote. So we just do their rule. So, and there's some question about that, but you can certainly give me that direction. And that's kind of under number 7 is if you want to give me future direction or rulemaking to add, say, education, continuing education, extra client records, whatever. So, but you can have that discussion now. And then option 3 would be to say no. So leave it just how it stands today. You don't have, you wouldn't have any microneedling because it would continue to repeal the one rule about microneedling in the aesthetics rules. So
I think we should hear from by the 10 to 12. I think we should briefly see where the board members sit on it. I mean, this is a lot to take in and we haven't had a chance to discuss it.
Meaning that just taking a poll as to which option they would prefer.
Like a quick.
Yeah.
Straw poll.
Sure.
Should we start with the people on the video?
Rebecca, you want to start?
Sure.
What option you want?
Yes, I think that we should keep it within the aesthetics scope of practice, but we should definitely, in order for that to work, it would have to be limited to the epidermis. I'm open to establishing a needle depth to that. I do think that we should have, we should recommend that part of the education be that bloodborne pathogen training yearly, just because that I think is very important with microneedling. But I'm open to hear what everybody else has to say too. You may want to call her again. That was kind of hard to hear.
Kimberly Canada.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear my name clearly. Yes,
You're sitting with us.
I agree. I would tend to lean towards option 2, leaving it as a within the scope of practice of estheticians. I think determining a needle depth is sort of as long as you're within the epidermis, that can variable, and you would never know unless you're doing an ultrasound on patients of what that epidermal needle of that epidermis depth would be. So making a specific needle depth, I think, is kind of a moot point as long as they're within the epidermis. But I also agree that education and training is is valid in every profession. And so the bloodborne pathogens make sense. I would agree.
Thank you. Kimberly Morris.
I would definitely agree with option 2 as far as it's within depth. I'm definitely okay, and an extra training as well.
Okay, thank you. David? No, you want to weigh in? Any points to ponder?
Okay, well, as a non-voting member, I can give you my opinion.
Yes.
But, I've looked at all the options, and I know this group, this combined board, and all the input, a lot of serious thought's been given to this. And as a director of another regulatory agency, I really appreciate the effort, and that it's been a mental and emotional journey that you've all gone through. That said, I think you've arrived at a very good place with some really viable options here. The idea of not defining a specific needle depth, I think is a good thing. If you have your threshold of epidermis, which could vary on a person's body, then that makes sense. The risk factors, I think it's been demonstrated from what I've seen, maybe it's more anecdotal, that there have not been reported injuries that I'm aware of. So it's not, from a public health and safety standpoint, I think it would be a sound option for number 2 that people are talking about. Training education for what I do outside of this, and I'm a layperson about needling, don't really know it. But I can tell you that training education or any kind of a procedure you're doing on another human being or an animal is very, very important. So whatever the board is a collaborative effort in consultation with the practitioners that are out doing it. I'm very confident this group is demonstrated by a lot of years of being around you, can arrive at very reasonable, practical rules, independent of a decision today. This could be something you do down the line, that you'll arrive at a very good decision.
Thank you. Jamie, on you. Option 2. Okay, anything else you want to add?
I think it's just coming from an understanding of livelihood and, just not wanting to take away from, it's already hard in this day and age to survive. So taking away an income stream might be a little harsh, but still being able to define things in the future about, bloodborne pathogens and things like that, if we were to move that into it later on.
Okay, great. I guess for me, I have a stronger sense of safety, and I have witnessed some mishaps, but I've witnessed mishaps with waxing. So and really, truly, like maybe even worse.
Right.
So I think for me, I will always stand by, I would definitely, I think number 2 is fair because of the flow chart every time. Option number 2 is legal. It marries up all of the things that our intent always was. I think that it takes a quick second for the blood issue to come into effect. So for me, I would love, also as advanced estheticians, we have to get our yearly bloodborne pathogen certification. So I do feel that along with the responsibility of doing this, we want to set our estheticians and our peers up for, we don't want them to be in a serious situation with their own health or the health of their client from a safety standpoint. So I would say, I would really like to see the bloodborne pathogen yearly certification. You can do it online because it does not affect like their income per se, their livelihood. It is a really, really good reminder. Anytime we get education, it brings it to the front of our mind. There could literally be people out there who aren't wearing gloves, or, I mean, you're only as safe as the most unsafe person. So I think that's where we were trying to marry up the safety factors, but I would also, I agree if they're working in the epidermis, and I also think people do have these devices at home, and for that reason, it would be grossly unfair to take it away from them. So, do you want to take a temperature check on your team? Sure. Dean?
I think with the information that's given and then reviewing further reviewing information the last few days, I am leading on option 2 with the very similar with bloodborne pathogens, as well as potentially moving forward into direction of continuing education, just like as we have with chemical peels and dermaplaning, to just further that level of safety. I think that that's kind of where I'm at. I am leading towards, I know, like, as you guys mentioned with the ultrasound, like you don't know what the depth, but I still feel like with seeing some of the before and afters that were sent in at a specific depth, I do think that there are science that show, like, you know, as we talk about Dr. Setterfield and like working on a specific depth that works on the epidermis, that was brought to my attention a lot in all the comments, public comments. So I do think that putting a depth to it will kind of set some of those boundaries as well for safety.
I'm definitely leaning towards option 2. I think staying within the epidermis, just like it's been for them, is totally fair. I agree that taking away from their livelihood is not fair. And I do think I am a firm believer in education. It is my passion. It is the way we move through life. And so I definitely believe there should be education to go along with it.
Alicia?
I also like option number 2, just because, like with you, the flow chart, if it's in the epidermis, that's kind of the end of the debate for that for me. But I like the idea of bloodborne pathogens. Just got mine renewed, so it's quick, it's easy. I always am refreshed with those rules, just the way you clean everything really. So I think that's important. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm for 2. I told you I was gonna, base my decisions based on the flow chart and staying within the scope of practice that has always been there. I think there is so much room for us to have more discussion about bloodborne pathogen certifications, not just for aesthetics, but actually for all of our scopes of practice. Hair design now has straight razoring in it. So I think that there's a lot of space for us to improve that kind of across the board. So I'm number 2 as well.
Chair Paramo, did you want to see if Harold is on the?
Harold, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So yeah, I'm leaning definitely toward option 2. And I think all of the feedback that has been given by the board members as well as the public, I think supports option 2. So I am very much in favor of option 2.
Thank you, Harold.
You're welcome.
So should we make a motion to vote? Does someone want to make a motion to vote on option number 2? And on the advanced board, we had discussed potentially asking for a collaborative rulemaking meeting coming up in the future about the bloodborne pathogen. So is that something we would ask for during our vote, or would we, as part of our vote, or would we just simply?
You can do it that way. You can tell me what you guys could deliberate on what you think the hours would be for initial education. If you don't think there's anything initial that needs to be done, and just continuing education, bloodborne pathogens, and then I could draft the rule, have a RAC meet, and just kind of get it started. If you want to do it that way, either one.
I'd be interested. I feel like because in our scope of practice, we are required to do dermaplaning as a continuing edge of specific hours and hands-on. Same thing with dermaplaning. I feel like this shouldn't get muddy. It should just be very similar to our continuing education to perform chemical peels and dermaplaning, as it's a continuing ed. to keep it consistent in our rules. That's my thought.
This is heavy. I have a question on that. So if we were to make that suggestion as far as going with number 2 and just asking that we collaborate on the rulemaking process for the education piece, could it be as simple as, since you have a lot of estheticians performing this microneedling in the epidermis, could it be as simple as just them taking a bloodborne pathogen online course to continue to do so? And then for those that have not been doing it, then they have some kind of, continuing education hourly requirement?
Let me just clarify. The chemical peel and dermal cleaning aren't actually continuing education. And there's a reason, because people were already doing it. So they have to just keep on record that they have done the 6 hours of training. And I think it's 2 different procedures, or 2 hours of procedures. But you could have an initial, or not even initial, you could say, you must have this, just like chemical pills, to do these services, and you need to have 2 hours of continuing education every year. That's what would be like advanced aesthetics.
And that's just like currently the estheticians who are practicing, they will, because they have been practicing, they are showing that can be their proof that to show that they have their continuing education. So this wouldn't affect them, so they can still continue to practice as it is then,
And
right?
you can make
So
it-
that wouldn't be.
If you put it in rule about continuing education, then they would have to attest on every renewal that they did receive continuing education in whatever it is that you guys decide.
This is Bob. I think David's trying to get a word in.
Oh, Hal here, just a question, relating to if you have a esthetician that's not doing needling, but would like to begin needling. Is this, Beatrice, what you're talking about, that they would plug in for the normal, startup training, whether it's 6 hours, whatever? I mean, how does that work if a person's gonna start doing it?
From my understanding, you can take a course. It's not about being in a school. It's about any course to show proof that you're getting the education to be able to perform this treatment. So it has nothing to do with it being specifically put into a school. It's just taking hours out of their time to learn from somebody or somebody to be able to practice it with this parameter.
Okay, so that's in line with what I'm thinking in terms of maybe from a rules standpoint. The training piece could, be articulated kind of along the lines of what you're talking about. We're not stating where they get the training, but that they have training and kind of the general nature of it. And for those that have been doing it for the long term, is it the type of thing you would need to do a grandfather? You could just grandmother
No.
people in or not? How does that work?
If it's just, well, I'm off the cuff here. If you add it in, then they would just need to have on record whatever you guys.
Somewhere.
Assuming all these people have already been doing it, so they have the training and expertise.
So they just demonstrate attestation,
They
what
would
have
have
you,
it
that
there
they've
by-
had the training initially at some point in their career. And they
Inspector would come in
continue
to
on.
look at it if they wanted to, that would be it.
Okay, thank you.
And then you could additionally do continuing education that they would attest on renewal if you wanted to. And they would also attest the bloodborne pathogens. if you
So
wanted.
would we make a motion, would someone make a motion to vote on option 2?
Probably the cleanest is to vote on option 2 and then have a discussion and giving me direction.
Does someone want to make a motion to vote?
If your vote is contingent on the type of rule or training happening, then you would want to voice that as that's a contingency of your vote for yes. That way we understand.
You're gonna point to the
Why
flow chart.
you're voting.
She's gonna point to the flow
No,
chart.
no, I'm just gonna ask, does that need to be both boards, vote separately for it, or is it one vote? And if both of them are doing it separately, does it need to be the same proposed vote for each?
So, both boards are gonna have to vote independently. And then if, based on the general discussion, if that is, what you're voting on, if you were to say, I'm voting yes on, number 2, contingent on, there being a rule on education training and attestation of bloodborne pathogens, then you could do that vote and motion either way. And then the next board could vote, and you, as the COS board, could either have a different conversation that you would like it to be different or the same. It's really up to you how you want to do that, but your votes will have to be separate as a board. So if you are in a agreement as to what those standards would be, then you could have that as an idea and direction and say, yeah, my vote is subject to that standard. Or if you want to do it separately as board, you could do it that way. Lots of
Does it help the
options.
process if we add that collaborative piece? Does it help the process?
It might, that way there's some clear direction as to where you're in agreement and where you're not in agreement.
I'm just going to make a motion.
Quick question. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say I motion to vote on it.
David?
Just a question as far as, I don't know what procedure is about any public comment before or after a vote? Where does that play? None after?
We all spent a lot of time doing the public comment and then
Okay.
we're opening it up at
All
the
right.
end.
Thank you.
I guess the question is the contingencies.
You could say something like, move to go with option 2 in consideration of education, bloodborne pathogens. I don't know if you guys want to add the needle vet then or not, just limit it to the epidermis. Like I said, the moth.
You could check in with the COS board to see if they were in agreement to that conversation, and then you could have a sense of that.
Where are we at with contingencies?
Covey, did we want to make a motion right now?
We're discussing, Rebecca, I believe.
Okay.
Either make a motion to vote or make a motion to vote with a contingency. I can't make the motion, but I would say that, I would say that voting to get the option that we all agree on is wonderful. I think the bloodborne pathogen seems to be a common, I think it's a nice standard for all of us as professionals on both boards. So I would at the very least love to make that a contingency. I do think that needle death is a bigger conversation. But I certainly, whoever makes the motion, we can second or
Covey?
internet.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to make a motion if we were ready to do so.
Go ahead.
Should we go ahead?
Do it. Yes. Do it.
Okay, so this is Rebecca Covey, and I make a motion that we go with option number 2, and we limit that to the epidermis. And I say that we make it contingent upon later establishing rules just around bloodborne pathogens training happening. And that could be an online course, and that they could attest to that, and that also that ongoing education piece as well.
Do we have a second?
I second Jamie O'Neill.
Shall we take a vote from the advanced aesthetic side? Okay. Do you need me to repeat what she just said?
A motion has been made and seconded.
Motion has been made. Motion has been seconded. I will now take a vote. Rebecca Covey,
Yes.
Kimberly Morris,
Yes.
Jamie O'Neill,
Yes.
Kimberly Canaday,
Yes.
Christy Knapp, yes.
Someone on the cause board want to make a motion.
Chelsea Westcott, and I make a motion to vote for option 2
With any contingency?
with education.
Yes.
And future
Bloodborne
conversation.
pathogen and continuing education.
Not necessarily continuing education, but with the conversation of continuing the conversation of education and what that would look like.
Okay. Does someone want to second?
This is Errol. I'll second it.
Thank you, her.
You're welcome.
I will take a vote of Chelsea Westcott,
Yes.
Beatrice Van,
Yes.
Harold Fox,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Tracy Promo, yes.
Next on the agenda.
Just make comment. I think you should all applaud yourselves.
So you can discuss further what you want those specifics to be, but I think you laid it out, except for the cause board on the continuing conversation, so. But the most, I can definitely get something in there about what applicants, start moving that process along. So next, we on the agenda, public and interested parties feedback. Let me get some sheets.
Yeah.
Oops.
Do you want us to?
Yes.
Okay, at this time, the Board of Certified Advanced Estheticians will hear public and interested parties' feedback. Members of the public, this meeting is being held in person and by MS Teams video conference and is being recorded. The recording will be posted to the internet for public viewing. Please be sure to mute your microphone and unmute only when you have been recognized. Once recognized, please state your name and affiliation to the board for the record. The public and interested parties feedback period is an opportunity for the public to provide feedback to board members. It is not the time for board members and the public to engage in a back and forth dialogue. If a member would like to have more information on a topic, it can be brought up under other board business and information can be provided at the next board meeting.
At this time, the Board of Cosmetology will hear public interest party feedback. Members of the public, this meeting is being held in person and by MS Teams video conference and is being recorded. The recording will be posted to the internet for public viewing. Please be sure to mute your microphone and unmute only when you've been recognized. Once recognized, please state your name and affiliation to the board for the record. The public and interested parties feedback period is an opportunity for the public to provide feedback to board members. It is not a time for board members and public to engage in back and forth dialogue. If a member would like to have more information on a topic, it can be brought up under other board business and information can be provided at the next board meeting. So on the list, the first name is Robbie Buckley.
I'm Robbie Buckley. I've been practicing aesthetics for 27 years. Yes, sir.
Please come forward, so that's where we have makeshift
Oh, sorry.
microphones. You're good. Thank you.
I'm a licensed esthetician and educator for 27 years. I've been doing dermal needling for more than 2 decades. I've never had an issue. I feel that we don't go below the epidermis. We've never had an issue with sanitation and safety regarding this particular practice. It is extremely called for. It is much sought after. And unlike laser, it does not destroy the epidermis or penetrate into the dermis. We are using it mostly for product penetration, not to go in and to destroy or to cause harm to the skin. I feel that it is in our scope of practice and has been for decades and should not be taken away at this particular time. I also feel, and I know that others are going to touch on this as well, the bloodborne pathogen education should be across the board and not just isolated to dermal needling with the standard esthetician. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Deborah Mosley? Maston? Sorry.
Not bad. Yeah, bad handwriting, but
Anyway, hello, a lot of you already know who I am. Deborah Maston, certified advanced esthetician and instructor, past board member. I am one of the administrators for Oregon Estheticians for Fair Licensing. I thank you for being very reasonable, taking into consideration all of the feedback from the public as well as those practicing estheticians that are doing dermal needling. I like this option number 2. I think it is a great a way to come together and to keep people working in Oregon. I do want to make 2 comments. First of all is, one, I do agree with Robbie. We dermaplane, we do extractions, and there's a possibility of blood. We can't take one service and say, oh, you have to have more training because of this. If we have any instrument that's going to draw blood and you want to include bloodborne pathogen training, then by all means, let's do that. But let's not single out certain services, especially because you know you're in the dermis because you're drawing blood. In the epidermis, there's no blood vessels. And so our goal is if we're drawing blood that we back off and we go shallower. And so our goal is to not draw blood, although if you're using, of course, any kind of topical analgesic, sometimes you don't know the depth. And we teach, when I teach to even go shallower because you don't know the depth as much. So I'm just saying, let's be fair. Let's not pick certain services where it may require an undue class. But if you are going to do that, then let's do it across the board for both professions of basic and advanced. And let's require bloodborne pathogens, which I'm not opposed to, but let's not just pick out on dermal needling. Thank you very much for your vote. We're happy.
Brenda Clayton.
From the Meeting-10, thanks both boards. I think we're all feeling really good at the end of today. I would like to say thank you also for referencing what our grid is and following the law, because that was written by a long time ago, and that is exactly where we want to be. And as a master colorist and master stylist, a reason why I wear these rings is because I've cut a knuckle a time or two. And I think that having the blood-borne pathogen training across the entire spectrum, especially with barbering and straight razoring, which I'm also licensed in, is 100% a good thing. And, you know, the more training and the more safety that we can get in our industry, the better always. Again, thank you so much to all the board members for hearing us and reading those letters. I know there were a lot, and to listening to how it affects our livelihood. So thank you. Thank you.
Next, we have Brenda Satchel.
Hi, I'm Brenda Satchel. I've been an esthetician for over 30 years here in Oregon. I've been a trainer in the past for over 6 years. Want to thank you guys, really seriously. Thank you for going with option 2 today. I think that makes the most sense. And I also support the bloodborne pathogen things. I've taught Oregon law for over 5 years. That's the one thing you would just keep hammering on them. So please do introduce that so that we are all, you know, just providing proper safety. And thank you again. Thank you.
Helen Lawless.
Hello, everybody. I'm Hélène Lawless. I founded the Oregon Institution for Fair Licensing, and the intent of that group was to be fair between the both professions. And I hope we continue with that. And thanks for respecting the intent of the law. We took a long time to pass. And really, I would like in the future for advanced institution and regular institution to work together. I mean, there's no need of us kind of going through what we just went through. There's enough business for everybody, and we can all be happy doing things within our scope, which was very clearly stated in the law in the past. And then, you know, as well, kind of going, and when we were doing this, writing the law and everything, we were kind of told you don't want to box yourself into something, you don't want to be too specific, because then it just makes it kind of, you know, very hard to understand. And so that's why we picked the epidermis. It was very clear, you know, if we go into 0.25 millimeter or 0.5 millimeter, my skin is totally different than your skin and everybody's skin. So we need to have kind of an understanding that if we are well educated, we know what to do, and education is key, and we need to go towards that more than just putting some really ridiculous kind of rules in the system. So, and trust what we learn. So anyway, thank you for making all this fair today, and hopefully it continues like this.
Thank you. Rhonda Hartzfeld. Sure, I said that wrong. My apologies.
Hi, I'm Rhonda. I own Amani Institute of Beautiful in Medford, and I want to thank all of you for making that right decision. And I agree, it starts with education, and so hopefully that we're teaching them the right things. Thank you.
Thank you. Zoe, Rich. Good. Awesome. Lindsay, Nesbert.
She didn't go get ours.
Awesome. And Haley, Dominic.
She also went to get ours.
Okay.
Sorry. I was thinking trusting at the other building.
That's it.
And there's nobody online.
Nobody online?
There's nobody said it. If you want to ask.
Is there anybody online that wants to comment? The word's done.
Can I make a comment just as a public person, not as a board member?
She's a board member. You're a board member.
Oh, I guess I'm a board member, just as a regular person? No, okay.
Thank you for the offer.
Not a regular person. Okay. On the agenda is advances to explore approving 2024 meeting dates.
So Advanced Aesthetic Board, have you guys looked at the dates, the proposed dates for 2024?
There are 3 dates and you guys meet on Wednesdays.
This is candidate Kimberly. I looked at the dates. I'm guessing that there may be not a lot of attendance on Wednesday, July 3rd before a holiday. Just throwing that out there.
And right this minute, we're right at quorum. Oh, wait, we have, well, no, we're one of them. We're one of us with Rachel.
Yes. So, yeah, let's change the July 3rd. That was on me. To the next. Could you do the following? Didn't have any Wednesdays.
The same with the November 20th. That's also the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I believe.
It's landed right on holidays. Okay, let's do,
July 10th.
yes,
Which is the following week.
yes, July 10th. Can you do July 10th?
Any conflicts?
Candidate, not at this moment.
And then for November, probably November.
November 13th is the week before.
November 13th.
It's a Wednesday.
Is that the November date we're looking at?
Yes.
And we're looking at what date in November?
13th.
I would have to either go the week before that or go into like December the 4th, if we're looking at a Wednesday. So I could do the 6th or the 4th of December.
November 6th. So we've got February 21st, July 10th, and November 6th.
That should work. And are we supposed to be blocking like 4 hours for these meetings? Or
I
the whole day?
usually do that, I think a couple hours.
November.
The 6th.
Yeah. Can we just say 9 to noon? Just.
I would say, yeah, 9 to noon is probably fair.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna block 9 to noon only.
Perfect.
However, if you repeat the dates again, please.
February 1st, July 10th, and November 6th.
February 21st.
21st, sorry.
10th and November 6th. Thank you.
And these are all 9 to 1 or 9 to 12.
Yes. Do I hear?
Wait. In person, one in person, did everybody agree to one in person?
Oh, wait.
Yeah, let's try to do that maybe in the summertime. I think if we're gonna do one in person, just for those of us who travel across Snowy
July
Passes.
10th.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the meeting? Maybe I'm motion to approve. I have a motion to approve the meeting schedule for 2024. Do I hear a second?
Covey, I second it.
We'll take a vote. Rebecca Covey,
Yes.
Kimberly Morris,
Yes.
Jamie O'Neill. Yes. Kimberly Kennedy,
Yes.
Christina. Yes. Okay, so it's been approved.
Thank you, Christine. The next item on your agenda is approval of chair and vice chair. So Christy has been serving as chair. That's Christine. And Rebecca has been serving as vice chair. You can go with that and just make a motion to keep going with that. You can make new nominations. It's really up to the board. You can make multiple nominations if you want. So the members.
Anyone want my job?
Candidate, really, I make a motion that we continue as is.
Rebecca's term is 12/31.
Can she serve as vice chair?
Only until December. She cannot.
No matter what, she can't.
Well,
She can continue.
She
to serve.
should serve until replaced, but
Do you want to have a new vice chair?
I mean, we have to have people showing up. That's anybody want to weigh in on this?
Anyone else want to be vice chair?
I'll do anything. Any input from the Advanced Aesthetic Board on this topic?
I'm having a hard time hearing you, but it sounds like we had a motion to continue on, but there is an issue with my term coming up here. So we have to have somebody either that takes over for me as vice chair, or we vote them in as vice chair right now. Is that correct?
yes.
Yeah, and if our next meeting is in February, then we might as well do it right now.
Yeah.
Correct.
So people start applying.
And I would say, Paige has been at all of our meetings. Right? Or Jamie, I mean, I'm sorry. I'll just say Jamie O'Neill has been at all of our meetings. So I would be okay with that.
So we need another motion.
We need a nomination.
I mean, where do we sit? I mean, I'm not very happy that Rebecca's term sells.
This is candidate. I can make another motion to continue with Christy Knapp as chair and Jamie O'Neill as vice.
Need a second.
Covey, I second that motion.
All right, we'll take a vote. Rebecca Covey,
Yes.
Kimberly Morris,
Yes.
Jamie O'Neill. Yes. Kimberly Kennedy,
Yes.
Christy Knapp. Yes.
Okay, the next item are your board reports. Bob, take it away.
All right, this is Bob Bothwell for the record, and I do not know what slide we would be on, but number of licenses issued in fiscal year 2024 in Q2, there were 12. And just for everybody's knowledge, Fiscal years begin July 1 and June 30 of the following year. So that's why we're fiscal year 2024. Quarter 2 of fiscal year 2024, we've had a total of 19 licenses renewed. 14 of those were online, 5 were on paper. The next slide is licensed by age and gender. And we have a very good number for all age brackets. Licensing trends, it's on a good trajectory. In quarter 2 of 2024, when this report was compiled, there was 600. The next slide is American Board of Laser Surgery Examination Statistics. In fiscal year 2024, there was 2,124 tests taken and passed, not taken, but passed. And failed, there was 1,127 with a grand total of 3,251 tests combined. And the Board of Advanced Statisticians, fiscal is in very good shape. They had a beginning balance of 143,878 for fiscal year 2024. And thus far with a cash balance of 147,468. These are big numbers, sorry. And that number should continue to grow as we move on into the year. Tramp the Shuck online. It doesn't look like it. So I will do the regulatory report for him. So this one is not by fiscal year, it's by biennium. So it's going to cover a couple of years. And in 2023, we have a total of, that would be 23 to 25, 12 licensed or 12 cases open. And in the current biennium, we have 1 case open. So 14 open cases. And as you can see, some of them are of licensing concern, safety and sanitation. The most recent one, there is a complaint related to safety and sanitation issues. I do not know what those would be. And then in the 23 biennium, there is a total of 7, and that have to do with services provided. And again, I do not have those details in front of me. That's all I have. Any questions? Great question. Thank you. Now,
The next item on the agenda, move right on into the top. So, it'll be okay with that? So you guys have more of a discussion. So, HLO, I'm sure you all know that we continue to grow every session. We either get a new profession, a new board, something occurs. So we recently in 2023 got this board of sign language interpreters, which is an additional 7 board members. And the way it works now, and I've been there, I'm in my 27th year. We've let the boards kind of decide where they want to be. Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. We're not doing that anymore. So for me and my boards, I'm going to align you all Wednesdays and Thursdays. And there's, we can do it online now. And it's just, it's easier for everybody, I think. So you guys are moving to Wednesdays. And we're going to give you as much notice as we can, which is a year. And then this also this scheduling I have here, January 31st, April 3rd, June 12th, and October 9th, align with your rules that will be looking at their schedule and the Rules Advisory Committee recommendations after the chairperson vote. So this aligns with getting those rules in place by July 1st, so that we are in accordance with Senate Bill 217. So everybody okay with moving to Wednesdays? And I mean, some of this, correct me if I'm wrong, in the past, hairdressers normally work had Mondays off. And I don't think that is the case anymore, so I think we're okay to probably move that direction. Wednesdays. So is everyone okay with January 31st, April 3rd, June 12th, and October 9th?
And just to clarify, this is Tracy, April 3rd and June 12th are scheduled to be in-person meetings.
If you say yes. Those would be the meetings that April you would go and approve proposed rules, and then in June you would do permanent.
Is there a requirement for how many in-person meetings and one of theirs needs to be?
All we can do is have 4 meetings.
So,
We have 3.
got it.
It's really just a shot in the dark.
Right.
You just recommend meetings. And if something happens, you have to be obviously on the happens one.
This is Beatrice Van. How long are the meetings? Are we doing it like 10 to 3, like kind of like how we're at, like 10 to 3? Because it
Good
says
question.
10 o'clock. It says 10 o'clock here, but
Well,
just
you've been meeting at 10, but that doesn't mean you need to stay maybe at 10. You should go back to 9.
I don't have a strong opinion.
I think it just depends on how long the meeting's gonna go for.
I would say your January one, it might even be able to be canceled, kind of depending on, because you're meeting now, end of October, and then we're gonna be doing all this rules stuff in between, racks, and so I won't even have the first, I will have one rack by then. So it's possible, I'm not gonna say for sure, especially with this bloodborne pathogens thing, if you cancel it, but your April one, I would say maybe 3 hours. There are gonna be rules to review. Might need longer. And there's gonna be some big, like retake exams and how many that you need to see, or when do you need to see them once they fail, looking at the study reviews and scaling those back. And some of those will be hot topics that board members are passionate about, not passionate about, because, they know how it helps. And so 4 hours, let's go with 4 for April and June.
So do we want to stick with 10 and do a 10 to 2, or do we want to come back to 9 and do a 9 to 1? 10 to 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And all those meetings work?
Someone want to make a motion?
I, Chelsea Westcott, make a motion to approve the meeting dates for 2024.
Go ahead, a second. I, Beatrice Van, second the vote.
And to take a vote, Chelsea Westcott,
Yes.
Beatrice Van,
Yes.
Harold Fox,
Yes.
Alicia Reed,
Yes.
Tracy Promo, yes.
Next item on your agenda is for the chairperson. Tracy has been serving as chair. It's your first year?
First year, yeah.
First year, and she's got it down pat, especially with 2 in-person meetings. So you can just keep going with Tracy. Well, actually, okay.
I'm actually thumbing through
Okay,
it
but
right
you
now.
can still reappoint. Okay.
And let me clarify, this is Derek Bolts here. Tracy, all your paperwork is done. It's just finishing the finalizing process from the governor's office, and you should hear by the end of the month.
Thank you very much.
So you can stick with Tracy, make a new nomination. Whatever you guys.
This is Chelsea Westcott. I make a motion to stick with Tracy.
Just get the hang of it.
I, Beatrice Van, second the motion.
We'll take a vote. Chelsea Westcott,
Yes.
Beatrice Van.
Yes.
Harold Fox,
Yes.
Alicia Reed,
Yes.
Tracy Promo, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next item is, at the last meeting in June, we had well, I'm calling it community engagement. We discussed, Tracy had stayed. Stayed, Chelsea? Somebody else, I think, stayed, and we talked about future rulemaking with Senate Bill 217 passing, the board needing to adopt the curriculums like we would just adopt what ODE has, because we have to get it done within the 6 months. So we'll be looking at that, but it'll also be looking at other things like making sure that the pathways to certification are in line with the bill, looking at any type of reconciliation that needs to happen with the definition of aesthetics and advanced aesthetics. So there's leftover rules that need to be changed or even deleted. And we were gonna do that with CAE now, but yeah. So you guys will happen in June, probably. And looking at possible education and microneedling devices. I have that on here just in case. Good. I'm looking at the written and practical examination and kind of the procedures around that. Retake exams, which is, yeah, so right now, people come in and they sit for a study review, they go over all the questions with this. It's become time intensive with staff and kind of where can we meet in the middle and make sure people are learning and knowing what they need to know to pass the exam, but not taking up so much time. So just looking at that and seeing if there's a different way to look at those things, looking at safety and infection control standards, bloodborne pathogens, possibly for every field practice. So all of these things I've been collecting. These are just a summary of things. And then civil penalty schedules need to be updated. Statutory numbers are wrong. So the schedule will be this. So I have the Rules Advisory Committee meeting February 7th and March 13th. The board would consider the Rules Advisory Committee reports, which is like you did this time, approve the post rules. Notice to go out in the May bulletin, public comment from May to May 28th, hearing May 22nd. We will meet on June 12th and consider all the public comments, and the hearings officer report, just like today, and they will become operative on effective July 1st, 2024. So with that said, I need for you to tell me what types of communities and individuals are likely to be affected by the types of rules that I just talked about. So, for example, I gave you some lists. So, who will this affect? Who are the regular stakeholders? Consider additional groups unified by common characteristics, Black communities, Indigenous communities, social characteristics, historical characteristics. Usually we have about 10 people, usually includes, I mean, just off the top, if we could want to have every field of practice on there. I would think an educator in all fields, and that could be one and the same person. Students will probably be affected, so getting a student representative, maybe.
I think having a student, this is Beatrice Mann, I think having a student, because like, having them on like for a perspective of what their perception of their education and what they're getting and what could be better or more. I think that's a really good recommend, like feedback from their point of view.
This is just, I think I'm gonna ask that question after this. What I was going to ask is, I'm just gonna ask it now. So in thinking through into the bloodborne pathogens piece and extra education for aesthetics, do you think it's appropriate for we just go into this rulemaking and be effective in July? Do you think it's important to have it sooner? And would there be a different type of rack? Would you want to be a collaborative rack, just like this was? I think it err on the side of caution. I would want it to be that similar types of communities and people likely to be affected. Excuse me. So back to the original one.
I mean, have we, if we're gonna talk about bloodborne pathogens and things like that, do we want to have someone medical, community related?
We have the,
Yeah, I mean.
but she won't be on the rack. It would be nice, it's always nice to have a medical provider. Do you think, I mean, I think people of color.
I was gonna ask people of color, like in general, at large.
And usually you can get one person that may fulfill.
Right.
How much of a demand to be on the rack do you have?
0.
Because
It's
one
like
of the
40.
complaints we got was that they didn't, that they've applied. Okay.
So I will do my due diligence and knock on doors. Yeah, so I will make sure everybody knows. If we do a separate one kind of for the looking at the bloodborne pathogens for the aesthetics, then obviously I would reach out to them again.
When you are looking for communities, like I heard through this circumstance that we had, that there was a lot of information given on through Facebook groups. Is that something that you could touch base with people that coordinate Facebook groups?
Don't know if we have an account.
We do not, that I know we did.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just been deactivated or.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as, it's not been used for quite a while. I can tell you that.
I mean, we can.
A couple of estheticians told me that they heard about what was happening through their Facebook group.
The aesthetics repair license has that.
So that we're utilizing that might be beneficial.
So, I think I've got through the direction here. On the, do you think it's relevant that it would be a different rulemaking for the bloodborne pathogens to get it in? Do you think it's okay to wait till the July and talk about it with all fields of practice?
This is Chelsea Westcott. I feel like if the idea is to add it for all fields of practice anyways, that it's fair to put it in with this rulemaking rather than a separate one.
Excellent. Okay. Thanks. We can make a motion to approve the rule schedule and move forward with very good likely meeting.
Anyone like to make a motion?
This is Chelsea Westcott. I make a motion to move forward.
I, Beatrice Van, second the motion.
And I will take the vote. Chelsea Westcott,
Yes.
Beatrice Van,
Yes.
Harold Fox,
Yes.
Alicia Reed,
Yes.
Tracy Promo, yes.
I don't think Tina's gonna give us.
No, Carrie will.
Okay. Great.
This is Carrie Everett for the record. So in going over these, the first applicant, 102317. Currently has reciprocity from Washington. Already licensed in hair and barbering in Washington, so. Any questions about this one?
I think looking over their grades are getting higher and they did just get a review in June. So I think they should be able to test again, like they're so close, right?
Have they
They just had a study session in June.
one more study session?
Good. One more. So this person was actually signed up for a 2-hour study review from the last board meeting, but they showed up late. So they actually only got an hour. They got an hour and 15 minutes, I think.
And this is the hair design test, not the law test that they're trying to pass for a hair design law.
Correct, yeah.
I mean, I would like to see. Like to see them do, I mean, really like to see them do the 2-hour. They would show up.
Another 2-hour.
Opinions?
That's a cost question.
Think of law.
Can I ask a separate question? With what you said, it's taking a lot of time and a lot of resources. Do we have an ideal, like we would like to see somebody at max amount of times for study sessions or hours or?
We would ask to do that right now.
Sorry.
I know Tina has something in mind, but I don't know that she's gonna want to.
Okay.
This is Bob. One of the things that Tina wanted to talk about and had approached me about, and I agree, was sometimes there's several months between board meetings and what have you. And we've been doing this for quite a while, and recommendations, we're all on the same page, HLO and board. One of the things that we wanted to talk about was, and probably should talk further, but I'll bring it up now, is to allow HLO to set what they need to do. Like you need a study review, or after the 8th, 7th, whatever attempt, to go back to school and do some training. And that way we can get folks licensed. Because a lot of the in-person we've seen a lot of success, even though it does take quite a bit of time. But it helps Carrie and her and Cerinthia and Brandon to get folks scheduled and in, and so there's not this long wait between board meetings or last test and board meeting, just to let us move forward as a suggestion.
Right. Is that something we would address right now or at a later date?
Does that have to be both? Is that would have to?
I was gonna say, I think
So
that's
it's gonna go into the July.
So what I envision is it would go back to something like it used to be, rather than having first attempt. I think hey, Tina, make a big yell for over answer. Yay, I think she wants to go away from her. Maybe having this retake in 5 days and 3 days and just let you retest, but let her talk.
Go ahead, Tina.
Sorry about that. So what's bad is when an individual is so close and has to wait another 30 days before they test. And then if they fail, then they have to wait until the board re-meets again, which is adding like months on their time instead of just having them come in and test again and test again. There's so many barriers for them that I think it would be a lot better if they were able to test more frequently and get their license instead of having all this prolonged time.
And I know that another thing that Tina had mentioned was, a lot of times within that time frame, their practical expires. So then they have to pay, you know, hundreds of dollars to retake a practical and then they can come test. So that prolongs it as well.
This is Tracy. I know that like where I come from, a lot of times when we're talking about these cases, you know, I really hate the idea of telling someone they have to go back to school to get these hours. Mostly because, you know, what we see, and I'm speaking from the school side of it, what we see is a practical application that they know what they're doing practically, but they test poorly. You know, it seems to be indicative of our field. And so, you know, telling somebody you have to go back to school, it just like, oh, because I know they're just gonna go back and sit at a rounder or station and not get the actual book learning, and which is why I think we've seen such success with the tutoring sessions, is having someone sit down with them one-on-one. But I did also want to, you know, preserve the resources of, you know, the department as well and not continue to have them sit inside these tutorial sessions. So I agree, getting them in quicker and quicker and having those limitations kind of pulled away from them, we would probably see more success in that.
And the board has to determine the qualifications for retakes. I'll have to look into it further. That means you can just defer to HLO, but that's definitely something we can look at in the rule.
Okay.
And this is Tina again, just one more thought on that. That not only do they have to pay to take a practical, they have to wait for the school to be able to get them in, and then they have to repay their application fees to retest again. And that's another, you know, 30 to 60 days before they can get back in. So
back when we put this into place, was when we had a few schools that had lots of people coming in and testing one after another, and there was being cheating and test was stolen. So that was the initial reason for having 1 day, 7 days, 3 days. But that's, we've since have stopped, got measures for that and protections. So I think taking a look at that again and saying, you know, where's the middle ground, I think is probably helpful for sure.
This is Beatrice Van. I kind of like when we're looking at retesting qualification of like whenever I'm teaching Oregon law from a school standpoint, it's like, it's hard when you're like, this is like the field of practice, but then there's natural hair care. And then so everything is so different. So I think like keeping it even potentially revisiting natural hair care, that could potentially in the CAE-COS side of each individual field of practice being testing very similar to the natural hair care that they could potentially test same day. And then, so it's consistent in verbiage because it's so convoluted. It's like so different every little, how it's written. So it's very confusing that way. That one certificate that you can get, yeah, you don't have to go to school for it. I get that. But I think the testing itself should be very consistent all across. It should be one thing. If we're talking about making things consistent, I think that's like something that we can revisit of looking at how the natural hair care and going into each field of practice. for
And
CAE-COS.
the board is at, or actually HLO starts the item writing committee, this month for barbering. So, yeah, that's definitely something to look at if you wanted to streamline it. You know, that's something the board can choose to do so.
Sammy,
Yes.
this Tina. One of the things though that I can't allow to happen is for somebody to retest the same day. Our lobbies are full anymore. We've got standing room only, and the other individuals would not be able to get in a test if we had testing the same day. So there would still have to be some type of wait time in between those for the individuals to come back. 3 days, 2 days, the next day, but not same day.
I mean, this is Alicia. What if they just went to the back of the queue and then got in, if they traveled from really far away?
Right.
And also, when I take tests, sometimes if I don't, the longer I go before retaking or whatever, the information somehow just gets lost. I like having that next test kind of right on the back. I don't know.
I think what Tina's saying is we are testing all day,
Mhm.
most days, right up until the last minute that we get somebody in and get them test completed before the doors lock. Going into
the
the
back of the queue, there wouldn't be time for them to get in.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
There just isn't the time.
Oh,
So it'd have to be 2 days perhaps. And I'm the same way. If I can go right back in and
Oh,
do
yeah.
it,
I
it's,
usually get
it's
it.
better.
Yeah.
And even though the education piece, when they sit through with Brandon and Carrie, they're maybe a little more comfortable one-on-one and ask that clarifying question for them that they don't want to ask in front of the whole class, right? In a classroom setting. So I think that's one of the reasons why it's been successful. But yeah, we're just, like Tina said, we are just outgrowing our space and it's all day long.
Hey, this is Harold. Quick question, and that is, so are we discussed, so it sounds as if we want to shorten the test time before the retakes. So, I mean, obviously same day is not going to work because you're going to be bouncing people who haven't even taken it the first time. So does it make sense to do within 7 days? Instead of waiting 30 days?
This is Tina. We already wait. They come back on the 8th day currently. I would like to see the 30-day go away and they can continue to keep testing until like their 6th attempt and then do a steady review, but just not allow them to test the same day. And I totally get it. These individuals that are driving a long ways away, but like Bob said, our lobbies are so full that we are already on the verge of turning people away right now. So that's just my thoughts on this.
Tina, I totally understand and that makes sense, but that's the reason why I'd like to take a look at it and say 7 days. I don't like the thought of 24, 48 hours. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Right. So we need to actually go back to this question of this particular applicant. Awesome.
Oh, by the way.
I would like to see them do another study review. Is there an opinion?
I would second another study review.
I'll second the study review.
We're gonna do another study review.
2 hours.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll just vote for the suggestion. We'll just do them all at the end.
At the end. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so the next one, 110380. She graduated actually December of 2014. She has redone her practical and several study reviews. I think she redid her practical twice. She just is not coming in as often and has huge gaps, obviously. A couple of them, she hasn't even tested the same day as the study review.
I think we've said, this is Tracy, I think we've said this before, we can't make them do that, correct?
Unfortunately not.
Just strongly suggest.
Very.
You could make that the qualification to retest. Yeah.
that the study, we could make it a
Yeah.
qualification of retesting that they do their study review the same day as their test.
Yeah, I mean, it just says you have to determine qualifications for retesting. I mean, that's what the law says.
It looks like they have been though. Exam date the 16th and then the 16th for study review, 29th and 29th, 5th and 5th.
The first one she didn't though. She waited over a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have a hard time making sure you have a spot.
It's still 3 times
Yeah,
of
3
doing
times.
it same day and still not passing. I don't think requiring it same day
Right.
has a lot of pull there.
These have all been 1 hour study reviews.
Yes, ma'am. And I believe this is the second time she's come to the board.
Sorry, say again?
I believe this is the second time her case has come to the board,
Got it. Thank you.
or second or third.
I think if she's only had a 1 hour review, she's still pretty close. I think maybe a 2 hour review.
I mean, and are we allowed to tell them at this point, like, this is gonna be your last study review?
No.
That I don't know.
If we put in the qualification for retake and like setting a standard.
I can definitely take all this stuff down and we can look into it.
I just don't want them to believe that there's just a never ending supply of study reviews. If they're, you know, like,
I agree.
I deal with 20-year-olds, and so I know that they're just like, well, you'll give me another shot, you'll give me another shot. And I'm like, well, up to a point, but you're utilizing resources and I want you to study at home.
Okay. Yeah, I'll make sure that all that, I'll have to consult people.
Yes. Thank you.
We'll look into that.
So a 2 hour study review?
Okay.
I second that.
I second that. Third.
Okay, and the next one is applicant 129956. And this individual graduated back in 2018. And I believe they've also had gaps. So they basically stopped testing in 2020 and then redid a practical in 21 and then started testing again in 23. And I believe their practical is expired again.
Yeah.
So they need to retake their practical before they can retest?
Yes.
That's also a rule you can look into as well.
In
If you want to look at extending that 2 years to longer, you can do that.
And I believe this person did have a 2 hour study review.
And he got a worse grade. I'm okay with 1 more study review. I don't know, an hour, 2 hours? Opinion, anyone?
This is Alicia. I think, wouldn't a 2 hour just be better than a 1 hour? Do they have to pay for this? No, well then, why not?
Well, this is Bob. They're improving incrementally,
Yeah.
and maybe the 2 hours will push them over to 70%.
Yeah.
Right. I'm fine with a 2 hour. Thank you.
I'm with the 2 hours.
And the next one, applicant is 140919.
I think a 2 hour study review for sure. Considering that we had 1 study review.
I would agree.
And it was.
So you think it's 1 hour?
I say, anybody have any stronger opinion?
It's fine, you can leave it over there. Thank you.
Are we saying a 2 hour review?
Mhm.
I second. the motion.
They've only had 1 study review.
Okay, so 2 hour. And next one is 141242. This person, is actually reciprocity from out of country, so they are licensed,
Got it.
in hair design.
Did they, the study review they had on the 20th, was that a 1 hour or a 2 hour?
1 hour.
Awesome. I think maybe another just 1 hour since they're so close and they improved so well.
I second that.
Okay. And next one is 147087. This individual's practical just expired on the 3rd, fortunately. And the only reasoning with this one is a language barrier. Right, they are only able to take it in English because we don't offer the test in their actual language.
Just just kind of some information in the past with other individuals that there may have been a language barrier. And they're not testing in their native language or tutorials in the study reviews seem to help those individuals. Still?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they are able to bring translators, or we can provide them.
And do we know that this person has done that?
Yes,
Awesome.
I do.
So we did see an improvement with the last one. I would do another
2 hour.
Another 2 hour on that one.
I second that.
Okay, and I believe this is the last one. 155172. And just graduated November of last year. She just met the deadline as she just tested on the 20th, 2 days ago.
So she would need to do another practical if she tested again.
No, their practicals are good for 2 years.
Oh, you said November of last year. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's, you're good. Thank you. A 2 hour review for her as well.
Second. I second that.
I agree. Okay.
Okay, does someone want to make a motion that we vote on all of them at once?
So we can, Terry can read them out back and somebody can say, so moved.
Okay, let me flip back to the beginning here so I can read them. Okay, so in regard to applicant 102317, a 2 hour study review. Applicant 110380, 2 hour study review. Applicant 129956, a 2 hour review. Applicant 140919, a 2 hour review. Applicant 141242, a 1 hour review. Applicant 147087, a 2 hour review. And applicant 155172, a 2 hour review. Is there a motion to approve those?
This is Chelsea Westcott, so moved.
Okay.
I Beatrice Van second.
The vote, Chelsea Westcott,
Yes.
Beatrice Van,
Yes.
Harold Fox,
Yes.
Alicia Reed,
Yes.
Tracy Promo, yes.
Okay, looks like Bob's up again. So, again, I do not know what slide it is, if people are following along online, but we're looking at the licenses issued to barbers. In Q2 of fiscal year 2024, we've had 7 licenses issued. Hair design for the same quarter, 49. For nail technology in the same quarter, 43. And in Q2, for natural hair care, we have not had any. For estheticians, we've had 75 licenses issued. Independent contractors, we've issued 67. Freelance authorization, we've issued 25. Cosmetology facility licenses, we've issued 47. Barber renewals, we've had a total of, somebody didn't have these up for me, 48 in Q2. 23 were paper and 25 were online. Hair design, we've had 179 on paper and 142 were online. Nails technology, 96 were on paper and 105 were online. Natural hair care renewals, we've had 1 renewal on paper and none online. Esthetician renewals, we had 116 by paper and 120 online. Independent contractors, looks like 59 by paper, 88 online. Freelance authorization, we had 6 on paper, 3 online. And cosmetology facilities, 102 on paper and 8 of them were online. The licensing trends, excuse me, for barber, we've headed in a downward trajectory. We went from 2,747 in Q1, and we've dropped to 2,721 in Q2 of fiscal year 2024. Hair design, we've declined also from 19,492 to 19,339 in the last 2 quarters. And nail technology, we also a slight decline, 12,666 down to 12,634. Natural hair care, we've seen an increase from 183 to 189. And again, these are all fiscal year 2024, Q1 and Q2. Licensing trends for estheticians, 15,440 to 15,418. Independent contractors, 7,656 to 7,617. Freelance authorizations are static at 60 in the last 2 quarters. And cosmetology facilities, 5,043 to 5,010. That does not mean that those numbers won't come up since we're early in the fiscal year. So those all would likely increase. Again, licenses by age and gender are very well spread out through all. Okay. Testing results for cosmetology. Anybody can stop me anytime because I will run out of oxygen as I try to do this. Any questions so far?
I'm actually, do we track, I heard you say the natural hair care had come down, that not as many applicants are licensing. Do we track the people taking the actual module for that versus the people applying for the licensure?
That I believe that's done on Workday.
Okay.
And so it's somewhat, as I understand, difficult to get those numbers because we don't track it.
Got it.
Through their Workday does it.
Got it.
We do it as they come in. So again, it's early in the fiscal year, so I expect things will increase.
Wonder with the conversation that we've been having about texture being incorporated so much more into cosmetology, if we're seeing less people going into the natural hair care because we're trying to incorporate more texture conversation in cosmetology and hair design in general. I was curious the link.
Yeah, it might be early to know that based on the number of licenses being obtained.
Thank you.
Okay. So in the first 2 quarters here of 2024, we've had a total of 146, and we've had 53 pass and 93 fail. This may or may not include some of the retakes that we're doing. So I can't tell you that fact, whether any of those folks are in this group. For aesthetics, 558 tests taken, 357 failed, 357 passed, 201 failed. Hair, 359 passed, 203 failed. Nail, 10 passed, 12 had failed. Natural hair care, 254 passed, 154 failed. And organ laws and rules, 252 passed, 165 failed. Okay. Board's financials. If you're looking at this, you can see that the board is still in the negative, but we are slowly finding our way out. We started at the beginning cash balance at negative $360,000, $360,473. We've had $1,175,602 in revenues. Expenditures $971,856, with the net operations of $203,774. And that's again early in this fiscal year, and with a ending cash balance of $156,726 in the negative, which we're early, so that number could slowly pulling us out, depending on what happens throughout the year. Cases, for example. So, any questions on any of that? Okay, you guys are just too kind to me. I don't see Trampus up there, so let me give you your regulatory report. So it currently has 2019, 2021, 2023, and 2025 years on here. And in 2019, we have one case still open, and I don't know where we are with that particular case. So what we've done is, when we actually finish a case and we are going to write a notice on it, we won't close it until that notice goes out. So it actually could be at that stage. I don't know. In 2021, we have a total of 40 cases still open. 2023, we have 130 cases still open. And, excuse me, these are bienniums, not years. In the 2025, we have 45 cases open thus far. So again, those were all for the biennium, not annual. And we do get a lot of cases. This is a very big board, so we get a lot of cases. And it looks like that a fair portion of them are unlicensed. And another topic are the facilities. A lot of the cases are about the facilities, whether they're licensed or not. I'm not sure. That's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, there's other, next thing on the agenda, we've got other more business. So I had a quick question. So when you guys voted on option 2, the public policy, your vote was to look into more education, to continuing education.
The conversation.
So did you want a separate rulemaking to continue the continuing education, or can that be rolled up into this one? Do you want a separate draft to do that? Sleep on it?
I know. I mean, I don't want to prolong this any further than we need to, so whatever decisions we can make, you know, as quickly as possible to get the ball rolling is what I would like to do. So if you need, like, do we need to set down, like, this is what we're talking about for continuing education today?
I mean, you could, yeah, I mean, yes, you can.
We still have quorum, right?
Yeah, you guys, yeah, that's what the future rulemaking discussion.
Okay.
So you want bloodborne pathogens, you want 6 hours of theory, you want them to do 2 hours of services.
Right.
You can do all of that, and then if you want me to do it in a separate rulemaking outside of the July 1st one, then I can do that with a separate rack.
Well, we discussed the bloodborne, because we want to include bloodborne pathogen in
For all.
all the programs.
Right.
We want to stay on track date wise with the July, right? So we just want a framework to work toward that date. Is that what I'm hearing? Like, what do you want to see?
Do you want an extra, like rules advisory committee, an extra rulemaking for other education for
Gotcha.
micro meetings? Your vote was slightly different than the
Right.
CAE vote.
Sorry, I know you.
I was trying to ask a question to like figure out my opinion.
Yeah.
I think what we're discussing, this is Beatrice Van and
Chelsea Westcott.
we were saying that is there actually 6 hours of theory? And so I think that in the grand scheme of things, if we are talking about a contingent to continue education, that it's probably more hours towards hands-on versus theory on the service, like, you know what I mean? So I think that because just the service itself, the setup and everything could take, and then a demonstration is already taking that time. So thinking that if we are discussing the contingency of continuing education, that the hands-on portion should be more than the theory hours. That's our recommendation.
Just looking at microneedling course, just to kind of see what people are putting out there in the world.
That's pretty much saying that they're gonna probably perform one service and get certified.
My thought is just that the theory, if we're doing the bloodborne pathogens as a separate thing, they're already learning what the epidermis is and the dermis and all of that, and there are other theories throughout school, right? So when you get into the actual microneedling service itself, you're reviewing to touch on those things for why you're doing it this certain way to make sure that you're staying safe within it and within the boundaries and why you're performing the service. So my question was, is there truly 6 hours?
Oh, yeah.
Truly of just theory
Yeah.
for one service that's not reteaching everything they already spent hours on?
It would be more device related, like
Yeah,
each device is gonna have a little bit of training.
and if it is 6 hours, then it's 6 hours, that's
Right.
fine. I'm just curious on if that truly is what it is.
Christina, the problem too is manufacturers.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they have no idea what the law is, and they have a tendency to be like,
A little bit.
nobody will know, like,
Right.
I just think setting nice parameters like you have with the others, like the bloodborne pathogen covers everything.
Yeah.
It's the responsible way to go, and then however you're handling dermaplaning. I mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
I think you already had.
in that blanket, like, because a lot of people won't even do it.
Sure.
Sorry.
Kimberly Canada.
You're right.
Kimberly?
Thank you.
Sorry, I have to leave the meeting, which I made notice of, but I don't know if it'll affect quorum, so I didn't want to.
Thank you. Yeah, could I adjourn my team? Yes, okay. The Board of Certified Advanced Estheticians meeting is adjourned at 1:00 p.m. on October 23rd, 2023.
It's just 6 hours.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Thank you.
You guys already have You already have rules that under requirements and standards that say you have to follow FDA, or manufacturer instructions. The only thing that's missing in this is the word devices. So it only references, was before the 2970 went into place. So we just have what was in statute then, so it would need to say devices, and then you'd already have to follow all of those things. It might say that somewhere else as well. So it's already here, and the intended use for the device, you have to already follow that stuff. And if we added devices in this list, then
Would be covered.
yeah, I mean, then the only question is, do they need to have on file something saying that they, I mean, this requires them to keep their, in whatever they learn on file. So unless you want to call it out specifically, you call it out specifically in this role, like, you wanted to do that.
Yeah,
I think the more blanket we have on everything, just when, talking about things moving forward, like they're just developing things all the time. And so the more we can be broad about it and stay within the scope of practice, that is always going to be what I lean into, because otherwise we're going to be back here talking about another device, another thing, and another thing, and another thing. So.
And I can always do FAQs.
Right.
Microneedling, we have to do this rule and all. So, I mean, that's easy enough to do.
Right, which I find people like typically, the general community understands that language much more effectively anyway. And so the more we can get in their hands in that, delivering it that way, I think is beneficial.
So. If I'm hearing what you're saying is, just go with the bloodborne pathogens. It's already here. Make sure that we add devices into that, which I already had down anyway. And you can move forward.
And are we saying bloodborne pathogens for all cosmetology every year? And every year you're renewing it every year.
I feel like that helped a lot, having that just during COVID. So I mean, just forget the skin issue, like the next pandemic, the next thing that goes around. Like salons were crazy. Yeah. If nobody is trained on that, when another pandemic hits,
right?
You've got a whole house full of folks just willy-nilly, and that's crazy.
I mean, I showed them Contagion, the movie. And we covered that, like, should we cover this material? Because I'm like, you need to be treating everyone like they have the worst disease you've ever experienced in your entire life. It's called universal precautions for a reason, right? Like everything is tainted.
At some point, is there like, especially with like the failure rates and all that of all the tests or the knowledge of some things, if it's going to be on everybody to have the bloodborne pathogens, would that ever trickle on down to just the schools needing to require that in their training?
We get the curriculum if the a committee wants to look at that and add that. There is infection control in there, but it's not.
Yeah, actually, during this rulemaking, I guess you could add it, since you guys will take the curriculum over. Could they add it as just line in the rule for education? That's part.
Because they could get their first one in school and then have to continue it.
I'll write it down.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And plus that might help them on their exam, taking the state board.
Okay, so I've got some direction here. Yeah, thank you.
Anything else?
No, I don't have any. Do you have any?
Okay, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are done. You're impressed?
The Board of Cosmetology meeting is adjourned at 1:05 p.m., October 23rd, 2023.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
I apologize for the inconveniences.
You should, it's your fault.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Harold.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, Carrie, do we just send you the pictures of our miles again, like what we did with Crystal like last year?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, just email to you?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'll email you just to check on my status.
Yes, include that, please.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll still down like that.